Welcome, everyone. I hope you're enjoying Canvas 24. And thank you for joining me on this next session, Unleashing Innovation, Discover, Define, and Deliver with Miro. I have a very exciting panel of speakers that will be joining me today, all coming from different crafts, from product, design, and engineering. So we have the whole team together. My name is Jenny, and I'm a marketer here at Miro. I'll be your host for today. We already talked about this in the keynote earlier. Innovation is more important than ever, and 98% of leaders agree that innovation is urgent for their company. What I'd like to add to that is that it's not just the leaders saying that. 90% of information workers agree innovation is urgent for the company. So this is a shared understanding and a shared perspective. But innovation comes with big challenges. Some say that legacy technology is actually stifling their creativity, and it prevents them from being productive. Disjointed tools that are not made for collaboration, leading to cross-functional collaboration actually being a roadblock instead of something that people are excited about. I'd like to welcome on stage Cybele, Jony, and Peter. Cybele Grandjean is SVP of Product Design at Hearst Magazines. We have Jony also joining us, who is VP of Engineering at Miro. And last but not least, Peter Parks, who is leading one of the product teams here at Miro, will be joining us today as well. So welcome, everyone. Excited to talk to you about innovation today and how you're encouraging your team to get the best work done and really drive outcomes and value for customers. And so I want to start off with you, Cybele. Can you tell us a little bit more about Hearst Magazines, where you're working at now?
Yeah, sure. My name is Cybele. I lead the product design team at Hearst Magazines. Our design team creates the front-end experiences for the millions of people who come to visit our sites, the really big commercial sites like Cosmopolitan, Esquire, Good Housekeeping, Harper's Bazaar, a lot of household names like that. And then we also create the content management system and other tools that power those sites.
Great. And can you talk a little bit more about what innovation means for you in the context of Hearst? Because when I talk to customers, a lot of them have their own interpretation of innovation. There are some common grounds, but it's also interesting to hear maybe like from you, what's your take on innovation?
Yeah, sure. I really like Jared Spool's definition of innovation, which is not necessarily creating something new or inventing something that didn't exist before, but adding value where it didn't exist before. So in the context of a magazine company where we have a lot of websites, how can we bring value to our visitors' experiences in new ways? How can we become meaningful parts of their days and lives beyond just reading an article on a website? So to me, that's a tremendous opportunity that we have to sort of reinvent what it means to be a media company.
Amazing. Jony, what does innovation mean to you?
Sybil stole some of words out of my mouth, but yeah, couldn't agree more. Like innovation, a lot of times to get conflated with invention, but it's really about, in identifying problems, challenges, things that exist, and finding a creative way to solve it. Like to me, like I associate innovation with creative problem solving a lot. And this is one of the things to be excited about Miro is we're taking things people are used to doing, a lot of kind of design discover, design, deliver in different toolings, and we're trying to innovate how we use Canvas and the power of Canvas to unlock that. And that we're doing things with like building tables and timelines and docs and other functionalities that are innovative onto the canvas, which you could think of as more bigger. And then there's also small things we're doing, which is a delightfulness with like being able to drag and drop people points. And I think that to me, it's equally innovative in how, because we're bringing delightness, solving problems without, the big bang.
Nice. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Now, Cybele, at a company like Hearst Magazines, I'm sure the creative process is really, really important for you and the team. So I'm curious to hear a bit more about how do you fuel that creative process and how do you spark great ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest barriers to innovation can just be getting caught up in the work that we're doing every day and not taking the time to step back and thinking about what else can be done. So, we have more things in our backlog than we could possibly ever get done. But it's important to step back again and think about what value are we delivering? What's the actual problem we're solving? Are we framing the problem correctly? And what are some other solutions that we might bring to it? So always thinking about the user, what value we're bringing to them, and making sure that that value connects to a business outcome. So how do we get creative about thinking about different ways to solve a problem rather than just taking it at face value, what we were asked to do? So that means, getting people involved cross-functionally. A lot of the work that we've been doing is moving our design team from being a centralized model to one where we're embedded in teams, working really closely with product and engineering partners to solve problems. So that has made a really big difference in terms of being able to just deliver more value and be more innovative.
Awesome. Peter, is this something you recognize as well?
Yeah, totally. I think that for me, the idea of cross-functional teams, as Cybele mentioned, are just so fundamental to the success of innovation and product development. And it's amazing to think that, not that long ago, that was a brand new concept. So for me, that's one of the kind of building blocks. But ultimately, there are other ingredients that are absolutely necessary in order to succeed here. And so I think there are a few things that I would love to touch on. One of the things that I think is super important is the opportunity for teams to come together in an environment where they get to kind of pick apart strategy and vision and goals. And those things might not always be clear at the start of the process. So there might be a debate about the best path to take to achieve a vision, which customer segment to focus on, which channel use to reach them, and that kind of common shared place. And for us at Miro, that's Miro, makes it super easy for everyone to participate in that process, to buy into decisions, and to make progress.
Now, Cybele, how do you make sure in that creative process that all voices are heard? Because you mentioned that you're starting to bring in more cross-functional partners into that process. How do you make sure that creative ideas aren't missed?
Yeah, I think a huge part of what we've been trying to do is bring product design, engineering, and research together to perform discovery, short bursts of research where we're finding out new insights about our customers, and really teaching everyone how to be a part of discovery, because that's not always been the case at Hearst. So sometimes that'll mean a design sprint. We've also been working with Teresa Torres's Opportunity Solution Tree. And earlier this year, myself and the head of research ran a workshop for engineering, design, product research on how to perform discovery. So I could actually show you that board if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I think our community would love to see that.
Okay, great. So a couple pictures here from the workshop that we held in the spring, and it was a hybrid event. We had most people in person, but lots of people are also attending virtually. So Miro really made that possible. Even the people that were, dialing in were able to access the Miro board and hear what we were all saying. And then we created this sort of discovery planning canvas that we used for the seminar, but it also is intended to be used for other projects. So when we're given maybe a feature request, like how do we kind of think through framing the problem a little bit differently? What's some of the existing data we have, and then really talking about what are some of the risks or assumptions that would need to be true in order for this project to succeed. And from this, we can develop short tests. So some thinking that, will help teams kind of get crisp on what the goal of the project is. And then we ran a sort of fictional opportunity solution tree planning session where we had a fictitious Hearst groceries, and we came up with research plans, a discussion guide, and then some templates for folks to do mock interviews. So this was a really fun exercise where, with a lightweight, fun topic, we were able to kind of quickly generate some insights from readers and some next steps. And so we also then encourage teams to use this template, where we actually then took a real world problem based on that discovery planning template and, create a desired outcome statement, generated opportunities, did silent dot voting, brainstormed ideas, and identified risks to create this opportunity solution tree that, again, makes sure that we're connecting our ideas all the way out to a product outcome. So this framework has been really helpful for teams to be able to kind of stay really focused on the outcome that they're driving towards while generating lots of ideas and being able to test those very quickly. And it really helps kind of bring everyone together around a shared way of working where we can collect ideas and prioritize, et cetera.
Just to chime in on that, like I'm a big fan of like what Miro and overall async work unlocks with it as well. I spend first 10 years of my career very much in an office-oriented synchronous work culture. And that meant like, you were the inputs that you could provide were constrained based on the room size that you could invite people to, or like, most of the time, like the the vocal people, more comfortable people got to kind of go on a whiteboard and sketch ideas and talk, and like the others were kind of left quiet and always the best ideas got heard, versus having like the async platform where people could actually provide comment feedback in their own time and space. I think that has unlocked a lot more creativity and also created a more inclusive forum as well. It's a lot less daunting to like drop a sticky or write a comment on a board versus having to walk up to a whiteboard and draw stuff.
Yeah, I totally
couldn't
agree.
agree
I
more.
love the idea of brainstorming independently and then reviewing together versus brainstorming out loud, where that loudest voice is the one who gets heard. So I totally agree with you, Jony.
Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts all. Switching gears a little bit. So we talked a lot about the creative process and kind of like coming up with ideas. Now, the next step obviously is turning those ideas into reality, and that's where it often becomes really, really difficult. Now, Peter, as a product leader, I can imagine you are often caught in the middle of the spider web, let's say, dealing with many different stakeholders, different levels of seniority, leading, and then also having to lead the team from those ideas to actual tangible outcomes. How do you make sure that your teams are quickly moving forward from that creative ideation and really like into planning the strategy and defining solutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the mess is just part of reality, and I think it's really important, as we've already talked about, that people do get an opportunity to contribute. But there is this point where the why and the strategy and the vision and the ideas need to kind of turn into a more concrete what. Like, what are we going to build? What are we going to ship? What is the solution to the problem we're trying to solve? And one of the things that we've invested a lot in Miro over the last couple of years are features and capabilities that help bring a little bit more structure to content. So we have new formats in Miro, like docs, that give you a place to turn those unstructured thoughts into really compelling arguments, clear definitions, and so on. And we have AI features that we're introducing to help you make sense of insights from customers, from buyers, and to help you improve the clarity of what you're writing in Miro. And Jony's alluded to this a little bit as well. I mean, the reality is that very few teams are fully co-located anymore. And so when you're not together in the same place, you often have to switch between different tools to accommodate different working styles. And one of the things that was a huge realization to me when I joined Miro was that Miro kind of accommodates both of those modes equally well. We can all get together on a board in real time, or we can use features like comments and a new AI-powered catch-up feature to make working across different time zones, different offices, super easy. And so there's a point where you take the mess and the chaos, which is just the necessary and real part of the innovation process, and turn it into a set of artifacts that you can then communicate and share really widely with other people. And I think for me, that's the kind of magical moment of Miro. Miro is present in that transition from idea to reality. And that's where value is created. That's where innovation actually happens.
Cybele, is this something that you also recognize with your teams?
Absolutely. So I would say our engineering team also relies heavily on Miro in terms of breaking down the engineering delivery work and sprint planning. So we use it both for that sort of messy, nonlinear thinking, prioritization, organizing thoughts, all the way through to delivery tracking design work and all of that. So yeah, if we find it to be a great tool throughout the whole process. One of my favorite features is actually the table feature, which I think is super nerdy, but I really like it because it helps take some of the unstructured thoughts and put it into something with structure. As I mentioned, I think we use Miro a lot in the discovery phase to plan the sort of messy innovation part, organization of ideas. And then we use it again at the end for sprint planning and breaking down engineering work. But I think there is a center part where, you know, you need to write a brief or you need to kind of put your thoughts into a pitch of some sort, where we might jump into another tool like Google Docs or Notion to sort of do that linear thinking and something that can be shared out. So I do think having that kind of functionality directly within Miro would be incredibly helpful because there is this context switching of jumping into a new tool and trying to remember which one you used, and having everything in one place, I think would be incredibly valuable.
We wholeheartedly agree with you.
What's that?
So we totally agree with you.
Oh, good.
So over to you, Jony, because I have a question related to engineers. Engineers every day are trying to solve the biggest problems in the world. Now, how do you actually make sure that your team of engineers deliver the best-in-class solutions that translate into customer value?
So as a leader, you know, one of the things I hold myself highly accountable is making sure that engineers have the full context. And to what Peter and Cybele mentioned earlier, is really, really key to bring engineering into the early part of discovery and make them part of the journey so that engineers could understand the why behind the problem we're trying to solve. That truly unlocks us to creatively problem solve, right? It goes back to kind of innovating, and you can't innovate if you don't understand what you're trying to actually solve. And we heavily leverage like Miro's capabilities to do that. You know, from being part of the canvas, a lot of engineers tend to be more you know, quieter individuals. Like having the canvas, having the async work, as I mentioned earlier, unlocks a lot of that collaboration. And then as an engineering leader, once we've kind of identified what we're building, we spend a lot of time discussing the technical designs, and we leverage our diagramming capability heavily on Miro to have those conversations. And being able, one of the nicest things I like about it is that you could actually zoom in on any part of the diagram, any part of the architecture. That's where we use things like tables and timeline to actually track those things. And I use those as a source of truth to stay tuned to like what's going on. And also helps me understand if new things got added, if the timeline extended, why behind it. You know, always estimation is hard, as the saying goes, in art is not a science, right? So having visibility into it and then being able to discuss is super helpful. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with the kind of new structured capabilities that we build onto the canvas. Having both the kind of the messiness, the discussions, alongside with the more structured way of tracking, and being able to quickly go back and forth a bit through, like, you know, we should try to organize all of those in a single space, so it's easy to navigate and find kind of the relevant artifacts.
So I heard the three of you mention collaboration a lot, and Jeff talked earlier in the keynote about the art of collaboration. I'm curious to hear from you, Cybele, what are some of the biggest collaboration challenges that you've actually faced, and like how have you solved them?
Yeah, I mean, I think challenges are just in new ways of working. Some people might be used to working on their own and not being involved in discovery. I think also having an organization where you have a lot of stakeholders, it can be really challenging to get all the, like, not make the group too large or too small. So finding that sweet spot where you can get enough people on board with an idea, spin up a prototype, and get people excited about it. So that's one way that we kind of try to move things forward, is by showing something exciting to people in motion and getting people behind it.
Peter, any final words on collaboration before we close off?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I always go back to this sort of people, process, tools split, because I think that's actually quite a good model to think about collaboration. And, you know, classically, as a software company, we probably spend more time thinking about tools than anything else. But to touch on the process piece a little bit first, we internally, we think about two layers of collaboration. There's collaboration that happens within individual teams. So that might be 5 to 10 plus people working on a you know, hopefully not too many problems at the same time. but those teams have to collaborate with each other. And so what I've found is that level of collaboration, cross-team collaboration, is much harder. Requires more orchestration and effort. It requires more planning. It takes longer. And so I think personally, when I've reflected on what has made successful collaboration, like the fundamentals aren't necessarily the same, but you need a little bit more investment at the cross-team level to make things work really well. And so I guess what that translates to in our product is the reality of having to manage things that exist across multiple Miro boards and extend well outside the Miro kind of universe. And for those of you who've used Miro a lot and tried to manage this, I know that it can often be a bit of a challenge. And we found it a challenge internally at Miro, to be perfectly frank. So we're introducing a new feature called Spaces that lets you bring content together into a single shared place for your team at whatever size. And you can combine Miro boards with content from other places. So you might have dashboards in Power BI, you might have strategy presentations in Google Slides or PDFs, and you can pull all of that together into one place. So it's much easier to give people, regardless of whether they're thinking about their own team or multiple teams, to give them the right starting point for collaboration. So they have all the context they need. But then finally, on the people front, I think for me, effective collaboration is fundamentally about the human side of things. It's about building trust and building relationships. It's about seeing or hearing people's ideas and voices. It's about creative debate and about goal alignment and a sense of shared purpose. And I think, yeah, I'm obviously biased, but Miro is pretty awesome for all of these.
Well, thanks everyone. I really enjoyed this panel. It was great to hear from all the different crafts, and really shows like how important collaboration is in innovation and how it is really a team sport. So thank you all for joining, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session and you were able to take away some best practices and some practical tips that you can apply starting tomorrow. And don't forget to go to miro.com/innovation-workspace to explore a bit more some of the features and functionalities that Peter, Jony, Cybele talked about. And you can also sign up to join the waitlist. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.